Becoming a doctor can be the worst mistake you ever make. Scroll Premed TikTok for 5 seconds and you'll know why. That's because we take on significant debt, on average $223,000. Let that debt compound for nearly a decade of training. And when these students fully graduate, tell them they can't afford to live like a doctor for another 5, 10, 15 years. It's a recipe for disaster. No one should go into medicine for the money, but nobody should go into medicine and be saddled with lifelong debt. I'm a doctor, an anesthesiology resident in New York City, and I co-founded Premed Catalyst, where we've helped hundreds of premeds get into their dream med schools and have earned over $1 million in scholarships. And one place we all get advice from is TikTok. And when it comes to pre-med financial literacy, here's what I've noticed. TikTok isn't necessarily wrong, but it's not giving you the full picture. So I went through Premed TikTok and found 7 clips about financial literacy and the debt that premeds take on. By the end, you'll know what you deserve, the truth, before you commit a decade of your life to medical training and commit hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's start with TikTok number 1.
I cannot sleep because I am so stressed out about my med school student debt. I just matched a few days ago into my dream program that I could have never imagined I would ever match into. And still, it's hard to fully enjoy because all I can think about is this.
Whoa. $508,000 of loans with 7.6% interest rate. And you can imagine how bad the dissonance is when you're supposed to be happy. Everybody's celebrating you. Everybody's putting all these pictures on Instagram because you matched into your dream specialty, into your dream program. But you have in the back of your head this looming, creeping doubt. And all this just looks like numbers on a screen. It could have said 700,000. It could have said $7 million. What is the difference and what does this actually mean? So why don't we take a calculator and take a look? So if you have $508,000 and your interest rate is 7.6%, I conservatively put 20 years to pay this off because at a 20-year term, you're paying $4,000 a month. That's $50,000 a year just in student loans. That's not talking about the food or drink that you eat, the rent that you pay, any vacations that you go on, any savings, any retirement funds. In 20 years, you will have paid nearly $1 million just to get out of debt. And remember, they're not starting their careers at 20. I am starting my career when I'm 30. Some people start at their 35 or 40. We don't have 40-year careers. We have 30, 35-year career tops. To spend more than half of your career paying off your loans, significantly eating into your annual paycheck, that is a lot of money. Imagine if you're a primary care doctor who only makes $150,000 a year. Imagine if you're a pediatrician in California who maybe makes $200,000 a year max. This is crippling debt. And to be clear, residency in and of itself is a lot, and she isn't going to be able to pay much of it, if anything at all, during residency. So now she has to worry about making more money on the side as a doctor. Isn't that kind of insane?
This is terrifying. This is my current student debt that I checked most recently. I'm pretty sure this has all 4 years included. And this is my bank account currently.
So $28.64. I think when I scroll TikTok, sometimes I see these things and it's like, haha, it's so funny. I barely have $100. Look at where I came from. But this is frightening. This is someone probably in their mid to late 20s. This is someone who has medical emergencies, possibly. This is someone who maybe needs to pay for something that happens to their family. What if their car breaks down and they can't get to work anymore? $28.64. How does anyone even eat for more than 2 days? You get rice and beans to maybe last you for the week. But after that, this is ridiculous.
I'm actually so excited about the $28 because that's more than I usually have. I did some calculations trying to figure out when this would all be paid off if I did like minimum payments or tried to pay it off aggressively. And I just got so overwhelmed that I had to stop.
And we can do that too. If she wants to pay this very aggressively, say she wants to get rid of it in 5 years, look how ridiculous this is. She would have to pay $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 a year post-tax. If she were a pediatrician, she wouldn't be able to do that. Maybe if she was a brand new anesthesiologist in Boston taking a sign-up bonus. But man, doesn't that limit your career choices? What if you never really wanted to go into surgery? What if you never really wanted to go into these lucrative specialties? You wanted to go into medicine because you wanted to help a community and be a family medicine doctor and get to know people and their kids and their grandparents. But you can't do that anymore. You cannot do that because that would put you in a financial situation that is impossible to climb out of. And yeah, maybe she now has to work for a public hospital for 10 years, make 120 straight payments, and hopefully that she can get the public loan forgiveness program. But that doesn't have a great track record either, and that's not promised.
Seriously concerned about my ability to ever own a home or even buy a car. I did not go into medicine because of the money, but I did think that I would be financially stable at minimum. And for some context, I'm the first in my family to go to college and to go to med school. And I thought there would be a time where kind of all that hard work would pay off and we would struggle less and just feel more stable. So yeah, it's just a little bit jarring and I don't know what to do.
This is terrible. You come into medicine because it's a harmony of all of your hopes and dreams. My parents came here with nothing and they struggled for a very long time. And for my entire life, I was pushed to become a doctor so that they could envision a better life for me than they had for themselves. And I imagine this person's story is no different than mine and our families. And yet she's now in this position where she looks at a number on a digital screen and it's tied to her for the rest of her life. And yeah, maybe she does have options, but these are not normal fears. The inability to buy a house or buy a car. Remember, she didn't have to take on all this debt. She could have went to community college, got a degree as a software engineer or an accountant or some other white-collar job that makes $60,000 to $100,000, $150,000 a year. She would have no debt. And in the situation that she is in right now, that would have been a better financial decision than the precarious situation she's currently in. We all want to say that it all works out in the end, but for many people, this is a 20 or 30-year journey, and who knows what happens in the middle. I have disability insurance because I don't know if I'm going to get sick. I take care of people every day at the hospital who have no past medical history, 30 years old, 50 years old, and now have a very serious condition that removes their ability to work and earn for the family. It doesn't work out for everybody. And the more risk that you put on and keep on your shoulders, and the longer time that you need to work to get out of that hole, all of that risk compounds over time. This is serious, and I hope that you guys see it with the way that she's describing it, with the actual numbers that she has in her bank account and her debt platform. This is real serious stuff. These are exactly the things that I wish I had conversations about when I was a pre-med in your shoes. I wish someone told me when I was an 18-year-old at UCLA, this is what being a doctor looks like, feels like. And I've made hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content talking about how to get into medical school, whether or not you should go to medical school, and what being a doctor is actually like. This is the reason this channel exists, and this is the reason why Premed Catalyst exists, to help premeds like you go farther in less time without having to make the same mistakes that I already have made. So if any of this resonates or any of this is helpful, please just follow and subscribe for more. It takes a single second. And with that, let's move on to the next TikTok.
What it's like to have your dream to become the first physician in your family squashed overnight because of the government. It sucks. It really sucks. I've been working for the past few years to get experience at applied medical school. I've been studying for the...
It's not uncommon. You graduate college, you maybe have to work a couple of years because your application isn't as strong as you'd like. My own partner took 1 to 2 years off so that she could get the clinical experience she needed to become competitive. She needed to take the AMCAS. She needed to do all these things. Some people can't afford to do all those things and take a no gap year timeline. Some people don't know how to be competitive for medical school until it's farther later in their journey. The average matriculant age for medical students now is 24. That means that the majority of them take 2 years off for a variety of reasons. Some people, like this creator Lauren, do it out of necessity for competitiveness and maybe to make ends meet.
Or the MCAT while working a full-time and a part-time job in order to make ends meet. I'm scheduled to
This is the thing that I always feel for premeds. It's, you don't know other people's stories. They work their asses off, a full-time job and a part-time job and studying for the MCAT. She probably is working harder in these years off than we all did during our undergraduate years. We were taking 19 units, 23 units, research in the morning, extracurriculars at night. We thought it was so hard. Imagine doing this, where you have to pay the bills and still try to commit yourself to take that next level of, and to get to that next level of education. Imagine how difficult that is.
take the MCAT on August 22nd, and I can't even go anymore because I can't take out more student loans. Private student loans would destroy me financially, even as a physician. And I don't even know what to do anymore. All of the work for the past 5 to 8 years just gone overnight. Do you know what it's like?
Yeah. If you thought the government loans were great, it's the Grad Plus loans. What she's referring to in this TikTok is the big, beautiful bill. I think it has a terrible name for what it's actually done for a lot of professional students. The big, beautiful bill eliminated the Grad Plus loan, and it added a couple of caps to people's amounts of loans that they could take from the government. Grad Plus loans weren't perfect, but they were kind of in that 4 to 6% interest range from what I remember. Private loans are far more aggressive. They're in kind of the 8 to 10% range, and some can be even higher, especially if you need to take on hundreds of thousands of dollars. The government has capped the amount of loans that students can take. $257,000 across all your undergrad, professional, and graduate school loans. Professional students themselves are capped at $200,000 a year. And it seems like a lot, but when you look at how expensive medical school actually is, the average public medical school is $286,000 over 4 years or something of the sort, and private medical schools like USC are even more expensive, $390,000 on average. That's for all total 4 years. And so if you do the math, if I can only take on $200,000 a year, that means the rest of the $80,000, the rest of the $190,000 for public and private respectively, that has to be covered somewhere else. You can add private loans, which are at a higher interest rate. You can take into your savings and your emergency fund, or you have to come from a family that can support you. Or you have to have a medical school application that is so competitive that the medical school wants to support you with merits or scholarships or grants or something of the sort. There's not a lot of options. And for the majority of medical students who do take on loans and did rely on the government to support their training, that's no longer an option. And for this woman who is financially savvy, she has to be financially savvy. She graduated college, now is trying to figure out how to get to medical school while working to make ends meet. She knows that she can't take on private student loans. We did the calculation earlier for $500,000 and 7.6% interest rate. This is insane, right? Imagine if you had the same amount of debt, but you were at a 10% interest rate. If you wanted to pay this off in 20 years, you pay $1.2 million. Again, there's not a lot of specialties in medicine. You'd have to work a very specific specialty. You have to work overtime. You have to work in a very specific state of the country. A lot of your options are totally limited. And that's just to survive and get out of $1.2 million in debt. A lot of people feel trapped, especially because this governmental bill was passed that absolutely took away the chance financially for people without family support or people without any other options to go to medical school. So, Lauren, I feel for you. And if there's ever a world where you can tell your story or build a competitive application so that medical schools can offer you some aid, there are many medical schools in the country that offer that. The famous ones are things like NYU and Einstein that pay full tuition. Kaiser has finished their first 5 years opening up a new school, but there are many new medical schools that offer aid for the first couple of years. I hope that that's an option for you, and I hope that perhaps when or if you ever do get a chance to take the MCAT, kill the MCAT, apply for medical school, that you build a competitive application and you convey your story in the best possible way so that medical schools have the ability to offer some of their aid to support you. I think it's rare to see a lot of pre-meds have this much life experience, have this much foresight and maturity, feel the emotions they do about becoming a doctor, and it would be a shame if you didn't get the chance to. So if we can ever help, please let us know. Compare Lauren's story and her struggles to some of the no gap year students from very, very wealthy backgrounds and been supported their entire lives. I don't have anything against them, but they don't have this same level of grit and perseverance and maturity and struggle that Lauren does. And when these people run into adversity later in the future and they haven't had adversity in their entire lives, sometimes it shows. And I wish that Lauren and people like her had more opportunity. So this is how finances and politics and medicine and education are all intertwined. It really affects real people, what happens up in our capital. Okay, let's move on to TikTok number 3.
How much debt will you be in when you graduate med school?
None.
Okay, MD, PhD, an option because the NIH funds your medical school education. They get completely tuition-free education.
How much debt will you be in when you graduate from med school?
$20,000.
$20,000, a totally different picture than $280,000, than $500,000. This is someone who can eliminate their debt pretty quickly, right? Maybe even during residency, but certainly within the first year of being an attending.
How much debt will you be in when you graduate med school?
About $200,000.
Okay, so this is kind of closer to the average, $200,000. You can see she's less happy of the other two comparatively, but $200,000 is the average. It's not a lifetime saddled in debt. We can whip out our calculator again. But $200,000 in 20 years is about $1,900 or $2,000 a month. Again, this is 20 years, so this is a very long time. This is also 10% interest rate. Let's recalculate with the 10% interest rate. $1,500 a month. Look, it's not crazy, but $1,500 a month for 20 years to pay almost double in principal. If you were more aggressive and wanted to pay $2,300 a month, you could get it down to 10 years. Want to be really aggressive, you could pay almost quadruple that and pay $4,000 a month and get it down in 5 years. But this is kind of the point when people say you have to live like a resident for the next 5 to 10 years so that you can pay off your student loans. It's so that you can afford $50,000 out of your paycheck for 5 years straight. Remember, post-tax, so that you can eliminate this huge financial burden that you incurred over the last 8 years of training. And let's just take a moment to think about the psychology here, right? I went to college for 4 years. Then I went to medical school for 4 years. Then I went to residency for another 4 years. That's 12 years where I haven't made a single dollar. Well, sorry, I made some money in residency, but 12 years where I haven't really made doctor money, right? When people think about doctors, they think about $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. But we don't see any of that money until 12, 15 years down the line. And so we're really used to, living like a student. I have, in med school, I lived in a shared dorm. In undergrad, I lived in a shared dorm with 6 people. In residency, I live with my partner, but there are many people who live with other co-residents in a 2-bed. And I remember thinking, I bring this up because I remember thinking when people graduate, some of my friends at UCLA were like, I'm so happy I now get to live by myself. I'm a 23-year-old. I feel like a grown-up now. I have my own place. And I'm nearly 30. And many of my colleagues still don't have their own place, right? So our life gets paused for another 7, 11 years while other people start to kind of live their grown-up life. And yet, when we're done, finally, after 7, 11 years, all that hard work, all that training, working 60, 80-hour weeks with less pay, then everyone, all the older doctors are telling us, hey, you have to live like that for another 5 to 10 years, even though your paychecks start to go from $2,000 to $10,000. Even though you see a larger number, you still are told you cannot afford those things. Even though the larger number hits your bank account, you cannot afford that vacation. You cannot afford that car. You cannot afford that house. And you can see how psychologically we're not built or developed. We don't have the experience to understand money well. This is why doctors are prime candidates for financial predatory institutions. Whole life insurance, the real estate market, all these places where they know doctors make fat paychecks, but they don't understand how to spend their money correctly. They don't have basic financial literacy. They have debt in the background. They're going to layer on a mortgage. They're going to layer on a nice car. They're going to layer on insurance to protect their families. Doctors can get taken advantage of because of our unique trajectory financially. We don't have any money for a long time, so we learn that mindset. Then we see a lot of money really quickly, but our mindset has not adjusted. And we have all these people who want to be our best friends and take us to Disneyland and give us all of these perks in the airport lounges. And these are all real examples that I'm thinking of. But we have to understand that we're not wealthy. You can't be wealthy with $500,000 and 7.6% interest rate. It doesn't matter what your paycheck says. Your paycheck better say $500,000 a month in order to get out of that level of debt. But this is a point that I'm making, that we need to understand finances. We need to understand what we're getting ourselves into because of our very unique trajectory. It's not unlike athletes. Many athletes don't come from anything. For the first 20 years of their life, they make nothing and they struggle. And then they go to the NBA, their first paycheck is in the millions. Their parents need help, their siblings need help, their cousins need help. Everybody's telling them they're the best thing that's ever happened to their community. Their pictures get put on TV, on billboards, and quickly that money goes away because they don't have and understand the situation, the trajectory that they're put into. I'm not saying that I'm an NBA athlete, but maybe I'm saying I'm an NBA athlete.
How much debt will you be in when you graduate med school?
130K.
How much debt will you?
So this is not totally representative, but remember that the average medical students graduates with around $280,000 of debt. And I don't know what medical school this is, but I guess it's this maybe University of Florida. But one thing I will say is that remember that certain schools have a lot more ability to provide for their students. It can be a winner-take-all game, medical school admissions. For example, if you are competitive enough to get into NYU or to get into Einstein, that is life-changing, right? Because those schools will pay for all of your tuition in perpetuity for all time while you are there. You will graduate medical school without needing to take on those hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that compound at such a high interest rate. So the more competitive you are, the more opportunities you will have, the more you can pick and choose. And you may not get a full ride scholarship at Einstein, but if you're more competitive, you can earn a large partial scholarship to UCLA or UC Davis, USC. Those are all real outcomes that some of our students have earned, hundreds of thousands of dollars in aid over 4 years that significantly change what specialty you can work in, where you can live, how you get through medical school without having to take another part-time job. And yes, I am sensitive to the fact that you can make the argument that to be competitive and earn those opportunities, you have to have a lot from the beginning. You have to be supported from the beginning. You have to have higher socioeconomic status and come from these privileged backgrounds to have those opportunities. That's not necessarily true. We know that because we've seen very many examples of it. Some of our students are examples of students who worked a work-study job. They went home for the weekends to provide for their younger siblings. It is possible. And part of our mission here is to democratize med school advice and guidance so that you know what to do. I am trying to eliminate all the black box and confusing parts of medical school admissions over the hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content I've made on the internet so that all that is left for you to do is just execute on the right things. I don't think it should be an excuse in today's day and age with the internet being free to not know what to do to be competitive. Yes, you may have it harder, but that's part of your story. And that is part of the appeal for a lot of medical schools who know that not all pre-meds come from the same backgrounds. And that can be your unique advantage because people from your communities, people with your backgrounds, they are patients too. And when they are taken care of by a person with a similar story, with relatability, with someone who understands their walk of life, they trust that doctor more. Their care and their outcomes are better. Medical schools know that, and they're looking for those students who can survive that struggle to the best of their ability. So remember that, yes, on average, med students take a lot of debt, but it doesn't have to be that way for you, especially if you can understand how to build a competitive medical school application and do that so that medical schools have to advocate for you to go and train at their program. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, here's TikTok number 4. Career college is for rich people. It's a noble profession. Realistically, being in school for 15 years, making no money while being in debt, I get $500,000 isn't quite feasible for poor people. As a poor person, taking care of your family takes priority over saving someone else's life. You also can't really focus on curing people when you're struggling yourself. Okay. So, let me talk. I think there is some truth to this, but I think a lot of this is a little bit blown out of proportion. Here's some of the things I do agree with. Premed college is for rich people. Rich people may have an advantage in college, but it's not solely for rich people. Medicine is a noble profession, and I agree with you there. But realistically, being in school for 15 years, so we go to college for 4 years. Many people also go to college for 4 years, so I don't know if I would count that. Then we go to medical school for 4 years, yes. And then residency is anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So it's an additional 7 to 11 years. Not really 15. Then you make the point that you make no money while being in debt. So we do make money as a resident for 3 to 7 years again. We make money on the lower end in some parts of the country, and maybe $60,000 to $70,000 in lower cost of living areas. Here in New York City, as a senior resident, I make $100,000 a year at Sinai as an anesthesiology resident. So no, I don't think we make no money. So that's definitely different than making $100,000 or $70,000 a year. And then while being in debt, negative $500,000. Again, the average is $280,000. And certainly, as you saw in the last TikTok, some people have much less. And certainly, as you saw in the first TikTok, some people have much more. $500,000 is probably on the higher 10%. So that's kind of blown out of proportion, I think. Isn't quite feasible for poor people. Poor people is a spectrum. There are people that are truly below the poverty line, but there are truly people who can make ends meet with a part-time job or a full-time job on the side. I worked 2 part-time jobs when I was at UCLA. Through medical school, I worked an entire part-time job for 4 years, and I took on unpaid internships because I wanted to gain other skills. I wasn't below the poverty line, but I certainly wasn't much more affluent than most of my classmates. That's certainly for sure. As a poor person, taking care of your family takes priority over saving someone else's life. Well, yeah, I think it's a little dramatic because doctors don't really save people's lives every single day. That contrast seems a little bit intense to me, but I agree with you. As a poor or a rich person, taking care of your family takes priority. And you can't really focus on curing people. Again, we don't really cure people every day. It seems like a very romantic description of what medicine is like when you're struggling yourself. And I agree. You can't really focus on doing anything when you're struggling yourself. So if you're truly struggling yourself, then of course, take care of yourself. And if your family is struggling, then of course, take care of your family. I will say that there is some truth to this. If you're truly in poverty or your parents aren't doing well and they can't take on a 4-year period for you to get on extra schooling, that's entirely different. Now, if you then become a resident, make $70,000, $100,000 a year, you can do a lot with that money. My parents raised our family of 4, now a family of 5 with just that amount of money, right? So you can really help. But if you can't afford to eat or take care of your health bills, even though you have student health insurance that often is really good as a medical student or a resident, or your student loans aren't enough, then yeah, that's different. But most people can survive a couple of years. If anything, this is truth because I talk about this when I talk about the cost of taking a gap year. I didn't want to take a gap year because I knew that my parents were dependent on me earning money. And my parents sell clothes. They sell women's clothing in a small store in Chinatown, Los Angeles. And I knew that that job had a shelf life. My dad carries heavy clothing on his back, and he has to wear a back brace, and he gets older and more stiff and less mobile, and it increases his rate of injury. And I knew that if I could become a doctor and earn a doctor's salary earlier, that would mean my parents could comfortably retire earlier. And so if anything, that made me more motivated to become a doctor, so I could earn that accessing, or so I could start accessing that earning power earlier. And ultimately becoming a doctor, becoming a resident, and now graduating at the end of this year, that changed my family's life. Once I make my first attending paycheck in the next year, things will entirely change for myself, my partner, and my entire family. They don't have to work that blue-collar, tough job career anymore. I think this is a very extreme description of what it's like being pre-med. And if you are in this situation, please, of course, do what you need to survive. But I would argue that the far majority of people aren't in this situation, and this can be harmful advice, because being a doctor and being motivated to be a doctor on a timeline that works for you and your family changed my family's life. And I don't want to deter other people who have similar goals for their lives because they think that they're going to be doing nothing for 15 years, making no money, being in debt, negative $500,000, curing people every day and saving lives every day, because this isn't really an accurate depiction of what we do. Okay, so let's move on to the fifth TikTok here.
What do you have?
Actually, I have a scholarship for medical school, so I don't have any student
What's
debt.
great?
It's like an application through a program called National Health Service Corps. It's for prospective doctors who are more interested in working in primary care.
I'm from Australia.
Great. So it makes a lot of sense, right? If you're gonna work in primary care, it's $120,000 to $180,000 a year. It's on the lower end of salary, depending on where you work and what states and stuff. And so there's great programs like that one that help with your financial aid tuition or tuition costs, knowing that the reason these exist, right, is that they know on a primary care salary, you wouldn't be able to survive. And we all need primary care doctors. That's the most affordable type of healthcare for our entire country. If you can prevent people from getting sick, prevent people from seeing me in an operating room, which is extremely expensive for American healthcare and extremely bad for people's health outcomes compared to just preventing any issues from coming up, everybody wins. So we need health primary care doctors, but so many of them are hamstrung because they can't afford to become primary care doctors.
I don't have any student debt.
Whoa, you're from Australia?
Zero. I paid it all off.
She's an occupational therapist. Daniel's
Working two jobs.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it on camera.
He worked 2 jobs to pay off his nursing loans. This woman is a med student.
Okay.
Maybe about 10.
Who is totally uncomfortable sharing her debt. It's probably an insane number. This is a respiratory therapist.
$1,000.
$10,000. Okay.
Currently, so far,
Yeah.
I'm at 140.
140. Okay.
It'll be
$140,000 as he started.
significantly more by the end.
It's all right, man. You're gonna make it back.
Like 120.
This is the thing that scares me, right? We get these phrases that are thrown around. It's okay, man. You're gonna make it back, and of course, like you're in the process. You don't want to be doomsday and say like you won't make it back. You're cooked, dude. But the reality is like we should understand the truth of the situation and understand what we're getting ourselves into years down the line. It's not healthy to just cover your eyes, put your head in the sand and say you're going to do it in positive affirmations. You're going to make it back. Everything's going to be okay. There has to be a balance. Like we have to be educated about this. This is why I make videos like this, so that we can all understand what we're getting ourselves into and make a plan to figure out if this is right for us.
I think.
16,000 now.
16.
That's not bad at all. Yeah, I mean, what did you start with?
Oh, 150,000.
150,000.
Woo, almost there.
How much do
Almost there. So you can see this guy's mid-career, still almost there, chipping away at it, probably working many overtime shifts over the last 10, 20 years of being a circulating nurse. I love the circulating nurses, by the way. They do a great job. With that being said, like, this is reality. You don't understand what life is going to be like in 10 or 20 years because you're a 18-year-old pre-med like I was when I was a freshman at UCLA. These are the things that you should be exposed to because you deserve to make an educated decision about what your future is going to look like. Okay. Let's go on and move to TikTok number 6.
Oh my God, how are you able to do all these things in your 4th year? Like, it's so expensive. How are you affording this? Credit card debt, massive credit card debt, and poor financial decisions. I'm so sorry. I came
Okay.
to medical school kind of accepting the fact that I'm going to be in a tremendous amount of debt, and there's really nothing that I can do about that, right? And I also started medical school when I was 22 years old, which means...
I don't think there's nothing you could do about it, right? We talked about other options that you have. You have certain career choices. They may not be right for you, but I don't want to throw our hands up in the air and say there's nothing we could do about it. You can certainly build a much stronger competitive application so that you can aim for certain schools. That can be pretty motivating. You can work other jobs or make money on the side, kind of like how Dr. Eric is here. Maybe he's an influencer of some sort.
Means that the rest of my 20s were going to be given up or whatever to my education and training alone. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let medical school stand in the way between me and my happiness when I'm literally supposed to be in the prime of my life. You know what I'm saying? And if that meant getting in a little bit more debt just so that I could look back at my life without any regrets, then that was something I was willing to do.
I like this perspective. This is a concept called time discounting, which essentially says that the money that you spend today is worth more than the money that you spend in the future. It's kind of a contrast to just the normal compounding, where if you put $1 away over 7 to 10 years, it becomes $2, right? And that compounding can be very powerful, especially when you age towards retirement. But this is kind of an opposite argument, where if you spend $1 today to go out with your friends and get a bagel, and there's a picture and you have laughs and there's memories around this bagel. No bagel in New York City is $1, by the way. But that memory compounds over time too. You remember it when you see your friends again when you're 30 and you're 40 and you're 50 and you're 60. And this applies to the nights you guys go out or the vacations that you guys take. And so I really like this perspective, but of course everything has to come in a balanced approach. You can't be spending all of your money now just because you want to compound all your memories, because you won't be taken care of in the future.
Really say that I've had pretty much like the best time of my life since I've been in medical school, and I don't regret anything. So for me, it was worth it. And please don't come up on here trying to give me financial advice. Like, my insight is very much intact. Like, my judgment is pretty poor when it comes to finances. Don't get me wrong. But
his insight is intact, but his judgment is poor. I love it.
That's just a problem that 30-year-old me is gonna have to worry about. Luckily, I think I'm gonna be in a career where money won't be an issue necessarily, and I definitely plan to be more financially savvy and literate when the time comes. Oh my God.
Okay. So I love this energy. I love his personality. I like that he understands kind of the situation he's in. He said his inside is sound, which to me means that he understands the fact that he's taking on a lot of debt, but he still is making the active decision for himself to commit to that debt because he recognizes that, you know, the time that he spends in his prime of his life in his 20s now is going to be carried with him for the future couple of decades. I am never going to tell you what you should do with your life or your money, but I am in favor of you knowing the situation and still making the decision for yourself. Some people would say that maybe I'm okay with putting away my 20s so that I'm more set up in my 30s and 40s and beyond. And some people on the opposite end have a strong arguments for the opposite kind of approach, like Dr. Eric here. Dr. Eric, I think, is going to be like a resident in New York City. He's an otolaryngologist or an ENT surgeon. So he's going to make a lot of money. That being said, even if an ENT surgeon makes $400,000, $500,000 a year, I don't know what his debt numbers look like. But if you're going to be in $400,000 or $500,000 of debts, especially with private school loans, money will very well be a problem. And so I don't want anyone to think that, okay, well, F it. I'm going to make a ton of money and everything's going to be fine. Because I think in that situation, your insight is poor there. Now, if you told me that you know the amount of money that you're going to roughly make when you graduate, you know the amount of money that you're roughly going to be in debt when you graduate, and you're still deciding you have a plan to pay things off, then I think that's a more educated, informed decision. But there's a couple of things that he says in the end. He says, like, my insight is poor. My 30-year-old self is going to have to deal with that. When it comes to time, I'm going to learn how to become financially literate. My thing is, you can be financially literate today and make better decisions for yourself today. And that doesn't mean you don't spend money, you save, you put away all the time. It can mean I've elected to spend more money here because this is important to me. I really want to spend this money in my 20s to go on that vacation with my best friends. And I'm going to, say no to XYZ, or I'm going to say no to XYZ and save money there. That can be a very financially literate, very financially responsible decision. And you can still go on the vacation. You can still buy these very nice clothes that he has too. So what I would say is congratulations, making it to residency in such a competitive specialty. I know that you're going to make a lot of money, but making a lot of money is only half the equation. Taking care of your money, saving the right amount of money, and honestly, the other half of the equation that other people don't talk about is learning how to spend your money well in ways that are meaningful to you. That is the other part of the equation. The last thing I want to talk about is credit card debt. So if you thought that medical school loans and private loans were predatory, wait till you see the world of credit card debt. Credit card debt is insane in that the interest rate is around 20%. And in America, about, I think 45 or 50% of cardholders have a balance from month to month. Let's say you're in $20,000 of credit card debt because, you wanted to go on an extra vacation or wanted to upgrade the car or get some new drop for some sneaker or something like that. $20,000, not that much. All I'll do is I'll just, pay it. I'll only pay $530 a month. But $20,000 over 5 years just carrying this balance becomes $31,000. You paid an extra $11,000 for no reason. Credit card debt, especially because you're in smaller numbers, you don't think is that insane. But the dangerous number is this interest rate. So be very careful with credit card debt. That's the one thing I would say that most people should have a very aggressive plan to pay off as soon as humanly possible, because very quickly this 20% can get out of hand. You go on a couple of nice vacations and you have $200,000 credit card debt, suddenly you're paying $120,000 in interest. And this is how you get kind of stuck. All right, let's go to our last and final TikTok here.
If you are a person who in the future is planning to take out student loans, please listen. So as a reminder, I started this TikTok to help students find unique ways to fund graduate education, because I was sick and tired of seeing students get into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and they were never going to be able to pay that back with that degree alone. However, I'm not against student loans. For programs like medical school, it's really important that we have student loans for medical trainees who don't come from wealthy backgrounds where their parents can pay for it or they have family members who are able to support them. The big beautiful bill is going to directly affect how many loans medical trainees can take out. Y'all, this is not...
Yeah, so this is just a nice recap. And I put up the AMC website here so you guys can see it. But read and learn about the big beautiful bill and how it's going to affect you if you are going to be a person who takes out loans. I can only do so much by making all this content to expose you to what you should be thinking about, what I wish I thought about when I was in your shoes 10 years ago. But you have to take the next step and be educated, be literate, because this is your future. And I think you deserve to know the things that you need to know so you can make the right decision for yourself. You're never too young to think about how much you're going to earn, how much debt you're going to incur. You're never too young to run a very simple calculation about whether or not this might be possible. You're never too young to watch videos just like this so that you can understand what options you have and what the best decision for you is going forward. If you ever want to talk about these things, these are the things that I like talking about because I wish someone told me about it when I was younger in your shoes. All right, well, that's all the TikToks we have today. If you like this video, there's another one where I react to the dark side of pre-med TikTok. That video is somewhere here, and I'll show you what is truth and what are some of the dangerous misconceptions you could steer far away from. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.